Did you know that in Texas an entire city was consumed by fire within hours, leaving nothing but ashes and a mystery that was never fully solved? That on its endless roads, travelers vanished while chasing opportunity, leaving behind ghost towns, abandoned mines, and names erased by the desert? And that for decades, some of the most wanted criminals in the United States found refuge on its plains, living in plain sight on ranches and in motels without anyone ever suspecting them. Texas isn't just oil, cowboys, and endless highways. It's ambition, conflict, secrecy, and borders that still hold dangerous stories. Get ready, because today you'll uncover 33 real, incredible, and eye-opening stories from Texas that will completely change the way you see the wild heart of the American South. 33. The Headless Rider of South Texas. Back in the mid-19th century, a bandit named Vidal made the mistake of stealing horses from the wrong man, a legendary Texas Ranger named Creed Taylor. Along with his associates, Taylor tracked Vidal down and dispensed a brand of frontier justice that was as gruesome as it was effective. To serve as a warning to other rustlers, they decapitated the bandit and firmly lashed his headless torso to the back of a wild Mustang. His head was placed in a bag and tied to the saddle. For years, travelers reported seeing the horrifying silhouette of a headless man riding across the moonlit chaparral of South Texas. Known as El Muerto, this specter became a staple of border folklore, with sightings continuing well into the 20th century. While the horse was eventually captured and the body buried, the ghost reportedly still haunts the brush country. 32. The Little Bronze Spitfire of Gonzales. In 1835, the Mexican government demanded the return of a small bronze cannon they had previously loaned to the citizens of Gonzales for protection against indigenous raids. The defiant Texans, however, had no intention of giving it back. They buried the artillery piece in a peach orchard until they could gather reinforcements. When the Mexican soldiers arrived to claim it, the settlers dug it up, mounted it on a wagon, and raised a homemade flag featuring a crude drawing of the gun with the words "Come and take it." This single act of rebellion sparked the Texas Revolution. The cannon itself was only about 2 feet long, but its roar echoed throughout history. It was later taken to the Alamo, where it was likely captured by Mexican forces after the famous siege, disappearing from the records until parts of it were rediscovered years later. 31. The Mystery of the Yellow Rose. The popular song about the Yellow Rose of Texas is not just a catchy tune, it is rooted in the story of a woman named Emily West. She was a free African-American woman from the North who was working at a hotel on the coast when she was captured by General Santa Anna's forces. Legend says that during the decisive Battle of San Jacinto, Emily was in the general's tent, distracting him while the Texan army launched their surprise afternoon assault. While some historians debate the specifics, the story suggests her presence allowed the Texans to win the battle in just 18 minutes. She was never a slave, but her bravery, or perhaps just her presence, became a symbolic legend. After the war, she applied for a passport to return to New York, leaving behind a legacy that transformed her into a floral icon of the state. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe and leave a like to keep discovering the strange and incredible history of our entire country. 30. The Dancing Orbs of the Chihuahuan Desert. If you ever find yourself in the high desert near the town of Marfa, you might witness a phenomenon that has baffled observers since 1883. Known as the Marfa Lights, these mysterious glowing orbs appear on the horizon, dancing, splitting apart, and merging in the dark. They were first recorded by a cowhand named Robert Reed Ellison, who initially feared they were Apache campfires. When he investigated, he found no ashes or evidence of humans. Over the decades, everyone from curious tourists to university physicists has attempted to solve the riddle, while modern theories suggest the lights might be reflections of car headlights on a nearby highway distorted by atmospheric layers. The sightings predate the invention of the automobile. To this day, the lights remain a protected mystery, drawing thousands of visitors who hope to see the silent, colorful ghosts of the desert. 29. The Coastal Titans of the Gulf. Long before European settlers arrived, the coastal regions of Texas were inhabited by the Karankawa people. Historical accounts from early explorers often describe these individuals as literal giants, with men reportedly reaching heights of 6 or even 7 feet. Given that the average European man at the time was significantly shorter, the sight of these towering tattooed warriors must have been terrifying. They were master archers who used cedar bows as long as they were tall to hunt and defend their territory. While later myths sheriffs unfairly labeled them as cannibals to justify their displacement, modern archaeological evidence suggests they were actually a highly adapted, physically impressive culture that lived off the abundance of the sea. Their height was likely a result of a protein-rich diet, making them the original formidable guardians of the Texas shoreline until their eventual disappearance in the mid-19th century. 28. The bilocating nun in blue. In the 1620s, the Jumano people of West Texas surprised Spanish missionaries by arriving with knowledge of the Christian faith. When asked how they knew these teachings, they spoke of a beautiful lady dressed in blue who appeared to them in the desert. Research eventually pointed to a Spanish nun named Maria de Agreda, who lived in a convent thousands of miles away in Spain. Maria claimed that she was transported by angels to the New World while in a deep trance, a phenomenon known as bilocation. She described the Texas landscape and the people in vivid detail despite never leaving her room. The Jumano stated she taught them in their own language and instructed them to seek out the priests. Today, she is honored with statues in San Angelo, and some even believe she is the reason the bluebonnet, the state flower, first bloomed across the Texas plains. 27. The Great Texan Exodus. In early 1836, as the Mexican army under Santa Anna swept across the territory, thousands of Texan settlers abandoned their homes in a frantic event known as the Runaway Scrape. Panic gripped the population following the fall of the Alamo and the massacre at Goliad. Families packed what little they could carry onto wagons or their own backs, fleeing toward the Louisiana border. The weather was miserable, with heavy rains turning the roads into rivers of mud. It was a chaotic exodus of nearly 5,000 people, mostly women, children, and the elderly. As the men were away fighting, many died from disease and exhaustion along the way. The flight only ended when Sam Houston's army secured a victory at San Jacinto, allowing the survivors to return to their often burned homes to rebuild the foundations of what would soon become a republic. Then 26, the night the island drowned. On September 8, 1900, the city of Galveston was the jewel of the Gulf, a thriving port and the wealthiest city in Texas. That evening, the deadliest natural disaster in United States history struck with absolute fury. A massive hurricane with winds estimated at over 130 miles per hour and a storm surge that completely submerged the island wiped out a third of the city. At least 8,000 people lost their lives in a single night of terror. In the aftermath, the survivors displayed incredible resilience. They did not just rebuild, they literally razed the entire city. Using thousands of jacks, they hoisted over 2,000 buildings, including a massive brick church several feet into the air, and pumped in sand to raise the grade of the island. They also built a massive concrete seawall that still protects the city from the sea today. 25. The Celestial Visitor of Aurora. 6 years before the Wright brothers took flight, the residents of the small town of Aurora experienced a close encounter of the third kind. In April 1897, a cigar-shaped unidentified flying object reportedly crashed into a windmill belonging to Judge J.S. Proctor. The explosion scattered debris over several acres and destroyed the judge's flower garden. According to a local newspaper report at the time, the pilot was found among the wreckage and was described as not being an inhabitant of this world. The townspeople, showing true Southern hospitality, gave the celestial visitor a proper Christian burial in the local cemetery. A historical marker now stands at the site, and though the original headstone was stolen years ago, the legend of the Aurora pilot remains one of the oldest recorded space traveler accounts in American history. Some believe the wreckage still sits at the bottom of a nearby well. In 24, the law west of the Pecos. In the late 19th century, the desolate stretch of the Chihuahuan Desert was a place of lawlessness until a man named Roy Bean arrived. A former saloon keeper with a checkered past, Bean set up a courthouse in his bar, which he named the Jersey Lily after a famous actress he admired. He declared himself the only law west of the Pecos River. Bean was known for his eccentric and often humorous rulings. He once fined a dead man $40 for carrying a concealed weapon, which conveniently was the exact amount found in the man's pockets, just to cover the burial costs. His library consisted of a single law book, and he often relied on his own brand of common sense to keep the peace. Though he was often more of a businessman than a jurist, his legend grew into that of a frontier folk hero who tamed the wild. 23. The desert ships of Camp Verde. In the mid-19th century, the United States Secretary of War, a man named Jefferson Davis, had a truly peculiar vision for the American West. He believed that the arid landscapes of Texas and New Mexico were so similar to the Sahara that the Army should utilize camels for transport. In 1856, dozens of dromedaries arrived at the port of Indianola and were marched inland to Camp Verde. These camels proved remarkably efficient, carrying heavy loads across rocky terrain where horses and mules would have perished from thirst. However, the American soldiers found the beasts difficult to handle and their smell quite offensive. When the Civil War broke out, the experiment was abandoned. Some camels were sold to circuses, while others escaped into the wild. For decades afterward, lonely pioneers reported sightings of feral camels wandering through the Texas brush, ghostly remnants of a desert dream that never quite took flight. 22. The Silver Secret of the San Saba. James Bowie is a name synonymous with the frontier and the heavy knife that bears his signature, but he was also a man obsessed with a legend. He spent years searching for a lost Spanish silver mine allegedly located near the San Saba River. According to the stories, the Spanish had discovered a vein of silver so rich it could have funded an empire, but they were forced to abandon it during conflicts with the Comanche. In 1831, Bowie led a small group of men into the heart of the territory to locate the mine. They were intercepted by a large force of native warriors and fought a legendary battle from behind the cover of a small grove of trees. While they survived the encounter, the location of the mine remained hidden. To this day, treasure hunters still scour the hills of central Texas, hoping to find the elusive Bowie mine. 21. The Blue Ghost of the Driscoll Hotel. The Driscoll Hotel in Austin is a masterpiece of Romanesque architecture, but it is also said to be the home of a long-standing spectral resident. Colonel Jesse Driscoll built the Grand Hotel in 1886, pouring his fortune into its opulent halls. However, he lost the entire building in a high-stakes poker game just a year later. It is said that the heartbreak was so great that his spirit never truly checked out. Guests and staff have frequently reported the smell of fine cigar smoke in rooms where no one is smoking, and some have seen the translucent figure of a man in a frock coat wandering the corridors. One of the most famous tales involves the ghost of a young girl who tragically fell on the grand staircase while playing with a ball. Many believe her laughter can still be heard echoing through the lobby during the quiet hours of the night. 20. The Diplomatic Crisis of the Pig War. In 1841, the fledgling Republic of Texas almost found itself at war with France over a group of hungry livestock. The French chargé d'affaires, Alphonse de Saligny, lived in a stylish legation in Austin, next door to a hotelier named Richard Bullock. Bullock's pigs frequently broke into the French officials' stables, devouring expensive corn and, according to Saligny, even munching on some of his official diplomatic papers. When Saligny's servant killed several of the pigs in retaliation, Bullock physically assaulted the diplomat. Saligny was outraged and demanded the Texas government punish the hotelier. When they refused, the Frenchman packed his bags and severed diplomatic ties, effectively ending French financial support for the young nation. It took years to repair the relationship, all because of a few wandering swine that did not respect international boundaries. This odd event remains a humorous reminder of the challenges of early Texas sovereignty. 19. The Final Stand of Sam Bass. Sam Bass was a notorious train robber who became a folk hero to some despite his criminal career. He was the leader of a gang that pulled off the largest robbery in the history of the Union Pacific Railroad, making off with $60,000 in gold coins. In 1878, Bass planned to rob a bank in Round Rock, but he was betrayed by one of his own men. As he and his gang rode into town to scout the location, they were intercepted by Texas Rangers and local lawmen. A fierce shootout erupted in the streets, and Bass was mortally wounded while trying to reach his horse. He died on his 27th birthday, refusing to give up the names of his accomplices. His tombstone in the Round Rock Cemetery was once chipped away by souvenir hunters who wanted a piece of the outlaw's legend, leaving only a modern replacement behind today. 18. The Ghostly Hands of San Antonio. On the south side of San Antonio, there is a set of railroad tracks that has become the site of a modern urban legend. According to local lore, a tragic accident occurred decades ago when a school bus stalled on the tracks and was struck by a train, resulting in the loss of several children. The story goes that if you stop your car on the tracks and put it in neutral, the spirits of the children will push your vehicle to safety. To prove this, many people sprinkle flour or baby powder on their rear bumpers before trying the experiment. After the car moves forward, forward, they often find small handprints in the powder. While historians have found no record of such an accident at that specific location, and engineers explain the movement as an optical illusion caused by a slight gravity incline, the site remains a popular destination for those seeking a brush with the supernatural. 17. The day it rained black gold. In early January of 1901, the world changed forever on a small hill near Beaumont known as Spindletop. A mining engineer named Anthony Lucas had been drilling for months despite the skepticism of others who believed there was no oil in the area. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble and a roar like a freight train erupted from the earth. A geyser of crude oil shot 6 inches thick and over 100 feet into the air, drenching the surrounding landscape in black liquid. The gusher was so powerful that it took 9 days to cap, and it produced more oil in that time than all the other wells in the world combined. This single event transformed Texas from an agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse and birthed the modern petroleum age. It turned small-town residents into millionaires overnight and set the stage for the massive economic expansion of the 20th century. We're in 16. The millions of Bracken Cave. Just outside of San Antonio lies a natural wonder that is both impressive and slightly unsettling to those who fear the night. Bracken Cave is the summer home to the largest colony of bats in the entire world. Between March and October, approximately 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats reside within the cave's dark limestone chambers. Every evening at sunset, they emerge in a massive swirling cloud that is so dense it can actually be seen on local weather radar systems. This biological phenomenon is not just a spectacle, it is a vital part of the local ecosystem. The bats consume tons of insects every single night, providing a natural form of pest control that saves Texas farmers millions of dollars in crop damage. The emergence can last for several hours, creating a living river of wings that stretches across the horizon, proving that the Texas wilderness is still full of ancient and mysterious rhythms. 15. The world's smallest skyscraper. In 1919, during the height of an oil boom in Wichita Falls, a man named J.D. McMahon convinced investors to fund a grand high-rise office building to accommodate the growing city. He presented blueprints for a structure that was to be 480 inches tall. The investors, eager for success and perhaps not reading the fine print closely, assumed the dimensions were in feet rather than inches. When the building was completed, they were shocked to find a tiny 4-story brick structure that stood only 40 feet tall. McMahon had technically followed his blueprints to the letter, and the investors had no legal recourse against him. He quickly left town with their money, leaving behind what became known as the Newby McMahon Building. Today it is a quirky historical landmark, standing as a testament to the wild speculation and clever schemes that often accompanied the early days of the Texas oil rushes. 14. The Invincible Navy of the Republic. Many people forget that before it was a state, Texas was an independent republic with its own functioning navy. In 1836, the Texas Navy consisted of 4 schooners: the Invincible, the Liberty, the Independence, and the Brutus. Their mission was to protect the coast and disrupt Mexican supply lines. Despite being vastly outnumbered, these small ships played a crucial role in the war for independence. They captured numerous merchant vessels and even engaged in naval battles as far away as the Yucatan Peninsula. The sailors were often a mix of volunteers and mercenaries, driven by the promise of adventure and a share of the captured cargo. Without the control of the sea provided by these ships, the land forces of Sam Houston would have had a much harder time securing victory. The Navy was eventually disbanded due to the high cost of maintenance, but its legacy is still honored by the Texas Navy Association today. 13. The Resurrection of Old Rips. In 1897, during the construction of the Eastland County Courthouse, a local man decided to place a live-horned toad inside the building's cornerstone as a sort of time capsule. The creature, nicknamed Old Rip, was sealed away in a lead box with a small amount of air. Fast forward 31 years to 1928, when the old courthouse was being demolished to make way for a new one. A crowd of thousands gathered to see what remained of the toad. To the absolute shock of everyone present, when the box was opened, the toad appeared to be alive, twitching its leg and eventually breathing. Old Rip became an instant national sensation, even traveling to Washington to meet President Calvin Coolidge. Some scientists believe the toad entered a state of extreme hibernation, while skeptics suspect a prank. Regardless of the truth, Old Rip remains a beloved local legend, and his preserved body is still on display in the Eastland Courthouse. 12. The Angel of Goliad. During the dark and bloody days of the Texas Revolution, a woman named Francita Alaves earned an eternal place in history through an act of pure compassion. She was the wife of a Mexican officer, and as she followed the army across the territory, she witnessed the brutal treatment of Texan prisoners following the Battle of Toledo. While General Santa Anna had issued strict orders for the execution of all captured rebels, Francita simply could not stand by and watch the slaughter. She moved through the camps at night, providing water and food to the wounded, and even managed to convince the Mexican commanders to spare the lives of several young men and physicians. Her bravery in the face of her own government's orders saved dozens of lives during the tragic Goliad massacre. Today, she is remembered as the Angel of Goliad, a symbol of humanity that shone brightly through the smoke and fire of war. 11. The Pirate King of Galveston. Before it was a bustling city and a tourist destination, Galveston Island was the fortified headquarters of a notorious pirate named Jean Lafitte. After being forced out of his previous base in Louisiana, Lafitte moved his entire operation to the Texas coast in 1817, establishing a settlement he called Campeche. He lived like a king in a large, red-painted house known as Maison Rouge, which was fortified with heavy cannons to ward off intruders. From this coastal base, his fleet of privateers preyed on Spanish merchant ships throughout the Gulf of Mexico. At its height, the colony had a population of over 1,000 people, including sailors, blacksmiths, and tavern keepers. However, after his men attacked an American vessel, the United States Navy forced him to leave. Legend says that before he sailed away forever, he buried a massive treasure of gold and jewels somewhere in the sands. Before moving on to story number 10, remember to subscribe and like to become an expert on the history of our wonderful country. 10. The Ancient Gallery of the Pecos. Deep within the rugged and winding canyons where the Pecos River meets the Rio Grande, there exists a hidden gallery of prehistoric art that rivals any in the world. These massive rock paintings, created by nomadic hunter-gatherers over 4,000 years ago, depict strange, otherworldly figures and complex spiritual rituals. The figures are often several feet tall, painted in deep reds, blacks, and yellows derived from natural minerals in the earth. Known as the Pecos River style, this art offers a rare and beautiful glimpse into the minds of the people who lived in the Texas wilderness long before modern history began. The dry climate of the desert has preserved these intricate murals with remarkable clarity. Archaeologists believe the paintings represent a sophisticated belief system involving shamans and journeys to the spirit world. Visiting these remote sites is like stepping into a dream etched into the bones of the landscapes. 9. The Empire of the King Ranch. No story of the Texas frontier is complete without mentioning the King Ranch, a sprawling empire that covers over 800,000 acres of South Texas land. Founded by Richard King in 1853, it is actually larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. King, a former steamboat captain, saw the potential of the wild grasslands and began purchasing massive tracts of territory. To manage the cattle, he convinced an entire village from Mexico to move to the ranch, creating a community known as the Canenos, or King's People. The ranch became a laboratory for agricultural innovation, eventually developing the Santa Gertrudis breed of cattle, which was the first beef breed created in the United States. Today, the ranch remains a working operation and a global leader in ranching traditions, standing as a massive monument to the vision of a single, adventurous, and determined pioneer. 8. The Lost Twins of the Revolution. During the struggle for independence, the Texan Army received a critical and powerful gift from the citizens of Cincinnati, Ohio, two 6-pounder cannons affectionately named the Twin Sisters. These artillery pieces were the only cannons Sam Houston's army had at the Battle of San Jacinto. They played a vital role in the victory, firing broken horseshoes and scrap metal into the Mexican lines to create chaos and fear. After the war, the cannons were moved around the state and used in various celebrations. During the Civil War, they were reportedly buried in a secret location near Harrisburg to keep them from falling into the hands of the Union Army. Despite numerous searches by historians and treasure hunters using modern ground-penetrating equipment, the Twin Sisters have never been found. Their disappearance remains one of the great mysteries of Texas history, a pair of legendary guardians waiting to be rediscovered beneath the coastal soil. 7. The Peace of the Hill Country. In the mid-19th century, German immigrants flocked to the Texas Hill Country, led by a man named John Muesbach. They sought a new life, but found themselves on the edge of the powerful and dangerous Comanche Empire. Rather than resorting to violence, Muesbach did something truly extraordinary. He rode into the heart of Comanche territory, unarmed and without a military escort, to negotiate directly with the chiefs. The result was the Muesbach-Comanche Treaty of 1847, a peace agreement that allowed the settlers to live and farm in the area without fear of attack. Remarkably, this is one of the only treaties between European settlers and Native Americans that was never broken. To honor the peace, the Germans in Fredericksburg began a tradition of lighting Easter fires on the hillsides, a practice that continues today as a beautiful reminder of the night the smoke of campfires signaled friendship instead of war. 6. The indelible image of the island. On the campus of the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, there is a mystery that has endured for many decades. On a high fourth-story wall of one of the old brick buildings, a faint but clearly visible image of a man's face appears in the masonry. According to local legend, the face belonged to a man who once owned the land and did not want the university to build there. After he died, his likeness supposedly appeared on the wall as a permanent protest. Despite numerous attempts by the school to scrub the face away, paint over it, or even replace the bricks, the image always seems to return within a few weeks. Scientists suggest it is merely a natural pattern caused by water seepage and mineral deposits in the old bricks, but the locals know better. To them, it is the face of a stubborn Texan who simply refused to be forgotten. 5. The sunset glow of the Capitol. The Texas State Capitol in Austin is a marvel of architecture and a symbol of the state's grand ambitions. Completed in 1888, it was constructed using over 15,000 carloads of pink granite from a nearby mountain. The choice of stone gives the building a unique, warm glow, especially during the golden hour of sunset. Interestingly, the land for the Capitol was not purchased with cash, but with land. The state traded 3 million acres in the Panhandle to a group of Chicago investors in exchange for the construction of the building. This massive tract of land eventually became a famous ranching operation. Inside the Capitol, the rotunda is so large that you could fit the entire Statue of Liberty beneath its dome. It stands as the largest state capitol in the country, a physical manifestation of the idea that everything truly is bigger in the Lone Star State. 4. The Sentinels of the Frontier. The Texas Rangers are the oldest statewide law enforcement agency in North America, with a history as rugged as the land they protected. Founded in 1823 by Stephen F. Austin, they were originally a small group of volunteers tasked with guarding the frontier against raids. Unlike traditional soldiers, the Rangers were expected to provide their own horses and weapons, and they became masters of tracking and wilderness survival. They were the first to adopt the Colt Patterson 5-shot revolver, a weapon that allowed them to fight effectively on horseback against superior numbers. Over the years, their duties shifted from frontier defense to criminal investigation, but their reputation for bravery remained legendary. With their signature silver badges carved from Mexican coins and their wide-brimmed hats, the Rangers became an enduring symbol of order in a land that was once defined by its wildness and lack of formal laws. 3. The 18 Minutes of San Jacinto. The fate of North America was decided in just 18 minutes on April 21, 1836. Sam Houston's Texan army, having retreated for weeks, finally cornered the Mexican forces under General Santa Anna in a marshy bend of the San Jacinto River. While the Mexican soldiers were taking their afternoon nap, the Texans launched a daring surprise attack. They charged across the open field, shouting "Remember the Alamo" and "Remember Goliad." The battle was a complete rout, with the Mexican army caught entirely off guard. By the time the smoke cleared, hundreds of Mexican soldiers had been captured or killed, while the Texans suffered only a handful of casualties. The victory secured independence for Texas and opened the door for the eventual westward expansion of the United States. It remains one of the most lopsided and consequential military victories in human history, achieved in the time it takes to eat a single meal. 2. The immortal 13 days. In the spring of 1836, a small group of around 180 men gathered inside an old Spanish mission in San Antonio to make a final stand. For 13 days, they held off thousands of Mexican troops led by General Santa Anna. The defenders, including famous figures like Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie, knew that reinforcements were unlikely to arrive, yet they refused to surrender. When the final assault came in the pre-dawn hours of March 6th, the struggle was brief and brutal. Every combatant inside the walls was killed, but their sacrifice became a rallying cry that unified the people of Texas in their quest for freedom. Today, the Alamo stands as a sacred site of remembrance, a quiet stone chapel in the heart of a modern city that serves as a powerful testament to the enduring human desire for liberty and the courage to fight for one's beliefs. 1. The 6 sovereignties of the South. The story of Texas is unique among all the states because of the diversity of its history, often represented by the 6 different flags that have flown over its soil. First came Spain, whose explorers mapped the coast and built the missions. Then came France, with the ill-fated colony of La Salle. Mexico followed, winning independence from Spain and opening the land to settlers. The 4th flag was the Lone Star of the Republic of Texas, a period of 9 years when the state stood as its own nation. Next came the United States, followed briefly by the Confederate States during the Civil War, before returning to the American Union. This sequence of power shifts has created a cultural tapestry found nowhere else, blending traditions from across the globe into a single proud identity. It is a history born of conflict, resilience, and a constant, unyielding drive for self-determination and progress. After watching these 33 stories about Texas, tell us, did you know any of them? Which one did you like best? Or which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Let's see how many of us share the same story, and if you think we've missed something or want to add something, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback helps us improve each video. Also, if you noticed any pronunciation mistakes, thank you for your patience. We strive to improve with every video. And speaking of videos, there's another one playing right now, so you can continue exploring the history of our beautiful country. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and like, so we can keep learning together. See you in the next one.